am, always will be enough. Breathe in, breathe out. Show me what you're
Hey guys, and welcome back to If the Mirah Could Talk podcast, where we talk about everything from the reflection that you see in the mirror to trials and triumphs. We have great experts that come on this show, and they are coaches, they are doctors. But this episode, we're going to talk to real entrepreneurs. It's time for war. It's time to get out of war with yourself and win the battle. It's time for us to look in the mirror and like what we see. And if you're new here, please like and subscribe. But I want to go ahead and introduce my guest. Miss Lisa has a powerful story that you guys are going to want to hear. You guys are going to want to stay to the end to this. It's going to be something like no guest I've ever had on this show tell her story about. But Miss Lisa, if you would love to just introduce yourself and tell people who you are.
Well, thank you for having me today. And here's the thing. We all have a battle that, as you were saying, we all have a battle that we are experiencing within. And you're not wrong. You're not imperfect. You're not enough. It's just you're human. And this is the way that you can navigate to self-actualize, to become your greater self. So my name is Lisa, and I am all about emotional mastery. And this came from a place of emotional suppression. So I grew up in an environment where emotional expression, individualism, anything that catered to leadership, self-leadership, was suppressed and shut down. And the way that wreaked havoc on my body over time led me to the passion that I have now, where I work with my somatic clients on how to move through these different emotions that we experience as humans. Discomfort mastery.
So for my viewers that are listening and they might not understand what somatics mean, can you kind of break that word down for them a little bit?
Absolutely. So, as for example, let's say you're 4 years old and you ask your mother for a baby doll, and she says, "Oh, no, we can't afford that." So, you may in your body not remember the words that were spoken, but you remember that ping of like disappointment. And so now you're an adult and you want to have a better relationship with money, say. And you're like, logically, you know that you've always been supported, but in your body, there's just something that pushes you back into old ways of doing things. And this is what the somatics, aka you can call it body work. It's moving energy through your body so that you can move the unseen, so that you can get clarity and be aligned with what you're thinking, so that your body's in alignment. And that's the mind-body connection. So that when you go and you decide, I want to have a better relationship with, using the same example, with money, now you have moved the energy that was in your body that was holding you back from letting that blueprint be your reality. So does that clear it up for you about the somatics?
Yeah, I think that the way you put that was beautifully said, because a lot of people are battling with anxiety or a unknown feeling of tensing up when situations happen. And money, for example, it's like you might have a lot of money, and the feeling of having a lot of money for some people is like you want to spend it as fast as you get it because you're not used to having a lot of money, but you're used to being in a poverty mindset. You're used to holding on to your last and being like, oh my gosh, this is my last. And it's like, where did that feeling first come from? And then what does that feel in your body? How does that connect? And that's a battle in itself, because sometimes it's unidentified fears that we don't even know we have. We're just like, I'm not dealing with that. That's for those people. But for me, I'm not dealing with that. So I think that people get caught up in mentally, they might not be dealing with it, but their body remembers it. Or it might be a place where it's like, you were abused in this home, and you drive past the home and you're like, but it's like nothing's happening to you in that moment, but you could still feel it. Or like you have a dream, and in that dream, something happened in that dream. And now it's like when you remember it, it's like, wait a minute, somebody died in that dream, and you could still feel it in your body. So I do think that a lot of our emotions get trapped in our body, even though we feel like we release them from our mind sometimes. So that was a great connection. So whoa, you are just loaded, Miss Lisa. You are loaded with information. But I want you to tell a little bit about your entrepreneurial background, because you've been pretty successful. So let them know a little bit about what you've done in your entrepreneurial journey.
Well, when I went to Howard University, I used to work at Starbucks, and there was a lady who used to come in, And I would make her, I remember to this day, she would get a caramel latte with one extra shot of caramel, and she would get light foam on top. So I had her order memorized. So here's the thing. When she would come in to get her drink, there were a lot of other people that also would come in to get their drink. It was normally during the morning shift. So the coffee was brewing, she would come in, and she used to tell me about her online business. And she used to sell hats and scarves. And in my mind at the time, all I associated with was right now, there's all these people that I'm catering to, and she's doing something online, and while I'm at work she's coming in and getting her latte. Like, I want that. So that encouraged me to move into entrepreneurship, but not until later. I didn't have the courage to do it at first. So I started selling. I brought these labels off of Avery Labels and these little bottles, and I started making homemade honey oatmeal masks. And I started selling it to college students at Howard. And so what happened is I started selling it to the college students at Howard, but I didn't have the courage, like I said, to actually really delve into entrepreneurship. But that was my first endeavor. And then later on, I started selling body butters. That was my first like official entrepreneur endeavor. And within the first month, I had clients or customers coming to me for these body butters. And then I made a course about it. And then I did one-on-one with people. And then, as I mentioned before, as a manifesting generator in human design, I pivoted and I got into tech. I just love tech and I was good at it. And people were coming to me like, can you help me with this? Can you help me with that? So I built a 6-figure empire just from doing the tech within a short amount of time. And while I was doing the tech, I noticed a commonality where some people will want me to do their tech, but there was so many things in their identity. The battle within that we speak about. There was this battle within with so many clients that they, even though they had the tech, the logistics, there was still something inside of them that was like, I can't do this. I can't do this part of it, even if I have all the things set up. And so that led me into the side of Somatics. And I've been with that for a while now. So that's like part of my entrepreneur journey. It's not linear at all. And entrepreneurship is not linear. And that was one thing I wanted to say too, is I learned that there was a lot more that met the eye with this lady who used to come in and ask for her latte. I thought she was just like at home on a beach making money online. And then I got into entrepreneurship with the mindset of build it and they come. But it's like build it and they come, then build it again and they come, and build it again and they come. You're building a pyramid. It's not like you're building one piece and then you're just done. It's a continual journey, a continual effort, continual courage. So that's what my journey has been with entrepreneurship.
And that leads me to my next question on what exactly does it look like for you when you're dealing with different clients now in Somatics? And what does that look like for an average client that wants to work with you or they're experiencing different things that we've spoken about?
So all of my clients who come to me, they built like an exceptional life, but there's this one part of their life where every time they hit it, whether it's they build an exceptional life in their career, they have the family that they desire, or whatever else success looks like for them. But say they go to connect with people, and every time they lock up, whether they go into fawn, fight, freeze, they just lock up. Like, I can't connect with people. And they feel that it's their identity, or I can't find love. And they feel it's their identity. I'm just unlovable. That's very much your inner child, your wounded inner child speaking versus your healed inner child speaking. And so when they come to me, they already are in a place where they know that they're enough and they just want to optimize where they're already going. So they come to me with a choice. It's not when they come, they're like, everything's falling apart. It's this one area of my life that I keep hitting a wall. And that's where I use my genius to be able to go in with pattern detect. Like my clients now, I'm able to pick up on patterns by the questions that I ask the client. And I'm able to ask the right question to get to those patterns. Not just so I see it, because I can see it before they do, but so they can see it too. And this motivates them to move out of it.
And I think what people pretty much, I feel like, ask me a lot, and I'm going to turn this question over to you, is what is one of the questions that you ask one of your clients that you feel like is the right question? It could be a general question that you usually ask, first consultation you usually ask, but what do you feel like the right question sounds like for getting information from people that's going to help you to transform their experience with you?
Mm-hmm. That's a really good question, and it does change depending on the person, but there is a general overview of what did you see modeled with this. And so often, what we saw modeled, we think, I saw this modeled, therefore I do this, versus I saw this modeled, I tried it on, I don't like the results it's getting me, I want to try something else. Or I saw this modeled, I tried it on, I could continue doing this, or I couldn't continue doing this. So that's like a general perspective of how I start digging into the childhood. And then everyone's story is so unique, so different. And the thing that present day, if they're not connecting present day, I will ask different questions about that. But I'll always go back to the early story. What was your first connection with that experience? And that's where a lot of the magic and the story lies. And that's where I'm able to infuse a lot of my mystical methods with the individual and get into their individual body centers to figure out where everything is being stored. So the main thing I would say to summarize this portion of it is the question that I ask is, what did you see modeled? And then taking the pressure off. You could continue doing it that way. Do you like the results you're getting? Mm-hmm. Then do something else. That just do something else requires some deep sitting with discomfort. And so secondly, discomfort mastery is huge. That's where so many of us thinking, you're scrolling on social media, I wish I could have that. I wish I could be that way. When in reality, you can, but every time you go towards it, you feel that discomfort and you stop. So it's not that you're not enough or you're broken and all of this stuff that's just not true. It's just mastering that discomfort. So that's really big with my clients as well.
Yeah, I think that that's truly emotional mastery. And I think we talk about the mindset a lot. We talk about the mindset, changing your mindset. You got to change your mindset. But we don't talk about what comes with changing your mindset. And
Right.
that's the feelings around what is coming up for you in your body? What is coming up for you that is locking you up into not making any moves and continuing to disappoint yourself and continuing to let yourself down?
Mm-hmm.
And that leads me to your story. So I want to know, because for you to overcome some of the things that we talked about, you had to not only change your mindset, but you had to release a lot of fear while still being in fear. And that's the complexity of humans. We can have a multitude of emotions going on at the same time and a multitude of things going on at the same time in our mind. And we're still, churning and we're still going. So let's start with just kind of introduce us to what did your childhood look like, to how did you even get to become a mastery of your own emotions?
So in the 1800s, this community was started by this Australian man, and he healed his son naturally. So his ego came into play, and he decided, I can heal naturally. So he started this community, and using his charm, he started spreading it throughout the United States. And he brought it to Chicago. And his philosophy was everything's faith-based. No doctors, no medicine, no physicians. And what happened over time is in Chicago, they weren't about it. They said, we don't want that here. So he moved it to Philadelphia, and the congregation did build in Philadelphia. And along with the no doctors, no physicians, there were so many different nuances, like going to college was wrong. So me having the battle within of even setting out to go to college was so anxiety induced that I spent like 90% of my time in the therapist's office while taking my classes. So I would go to therapy and go to class and go to therapy, go to class. Wow. And then I was going to party on the weekend. So, but the reality is that was one of the beliefs that I had to challenge myself, move through my body with my emotions, these battling emotions within that were saying, this is wrong. Like you're gonna burn in hell for this, for going to college. And this other side of me is looking at all these people going to college and they're just living and growing and self-actualizing. And I'm like, something's not adding up here. And then the second thing was just the different clothes that we could wear. Even from the time I left the cult, I would get a note from my pastor saying that I was exempt from wearing the work uniform. I was in AmeriCorps at the time, and that I could wear like a skirt over the pants that we had to wear. And I was just like very adamant about it because I really thought something bad would happen to me. The third thing was public places, like going to the movie theater. The first time I went to the movie theater, I was shaking. And I came home and I just prayed to God, like, don't hurt me. And I watched a movie with, like, it was like, what's his name? It was called The Flying Phoenix with Dennis Quaid, or Flying Phoenix, or it was just like this movie that was harmless. So that was a third thing I had to overcome. And how did I overcome these things? Is consistently sitting in discomfort. And to this day, I'm constantly calibrating, meaning I'm constantly moving from one belief to a new belief. Okay, I'm doing this way, and I want to do it this way. And I've gotten so comfortable with sitting in discomfort that it's my friend. So I'm able to sit with that discomfort. But it took being uncomfortable and not knowing how for a long time. And to a point that you made, a lot of times people see, oh yeah, just be positive. And it actually shuts people down because as humans, we have negative experiences. And you're allowed to express your emotions. Emotions are not negative. It's the delivery of how you're evolving those emotions. So it's this pseudo sense that we have to be positive in order to get the things we want. And it deters some people from sitting in that space of like the illusion that it's uncomfortable. This is danger. It's fire. I have to leave. So along my journey of leaving this place and acclimating to society, I had to learn that it's okay to be human. It's okay to express myself. It's okay to use my voice and open up my throat. And it's okay to just speak the things I want to speak and cry the way I want to cry. And the thing that's not okay is how it's delivered. If you're angry and you're yelling at people, that's a problem. But if you're angry and you're sitting with the anger, like, I feel so angry right now in your body, and you're feeling, where do you feel that in your body? In your back, in your shoulder, in your trapezoid? Then that's a healthy way to navigate through that emotion. So that's what happened after I left this community. There was just like a moment of silence where I didn't speak. I didn't trust my voice. I thought if I spoke, I would cry, or I couldn't hold a conversation with anyone without getting all infused with all the different things that happened before. So there was a lot of sitting with that discomfort that made me really good with it.
I'm just curious, did you have Stockholm syndrome once leaving that place, of wanting to go back, or feeling like, because at that moment you couldn't trust yourself, so you can go ahead and answer that one. I'm just
So that's a really good question. Not so much around the actual place, because I knew there was something in the place. I just always knew that I was like, there's something greater. I don't know what it is or where it is, but I would just study things and I knew there was something greater. What I did have like nostalgia for is the community sense. And, even sometimes there was this strong sense of community. And everyone knew each other. Everyone knew each other, who was dating who, or each other's middle names. It was a very strong sense of community. And that was one positive aspect that I really, really always appreciated. And I did like crave that when I left. That was about like the only part that I craved, and the different friends that I had in that community. Because I had a lot of friends there and we were all, so that interconnectedness, I didn't find that too much in society. In society, it's like you have to prove and then connect, or there was always some performance before you can move into the connection. Whereas in that community, one of the positives was there was definitely a strong sense of community. Even if it wasn't always healthy, it was there. So I did have that for sure. But I never had that pull to like, I need to go back, or nothing like that. I knew it wasn't right.
And I think that someone is in a community that you were in, and in a place that you were in, that may be watching this, and they may feel like this is the way and this is the truth, because somewhere man has tormented what God has meant for good. And it puts them in a place of everything they do, they're in judgment. And they can't live, they can't breathe, they can't do anything because they're going to be judged, because the ideology of the leadership that they're under. And I invite someone to be freed from that, because it's not about what someone else is telling you. And you may not have a strong will right now to leave at this moment. But I would pray that you be freed from that, because it's a lot of leaders that are leading people into a place of weakness and basically relying on lies and relying on things that will never serve them. That is, and it creates that battle within yourself, because it seems like you were able to identify that this is not right. But if someone is listening to this and they have the feeling of this is not right, but I don't know why. I don't know what's going on. I know this is not right, but they're telling me this is the truth. They're telling me, like, they have the proof, they have the this, they have the that. And it's like, but something in your heart is telling you this is not right. You need to definitely reevaluate the situation. And that brings me to you talk about different emotions that's trapped in our body. I want to talk about the heart and emotions that can be trapped in our heart, and how does that look, or what does that look like in the work that you do?
Well, what that looks like in the work that I do, and what you were saying, how someone's in that space where they're like, something's not right, but they have the proof, they have the evidence, so I'm going to follow that voice. This is a suppression of the intuition. So when it comes to the heart, you want to really tone into that intuition, even if everyone around you is like, this is the way things are done. And inside, you can't even logically put it together, but you know that something's not right. Something's not right. I also want to say, too, that anytime fear is injected into you, it crosses the path between man and then religion. And that's where the two worlds get immersed. So fear does not come from God. Fear comes from man. So if you're in a situation where you're feeling lots of fear and lacking in faith, or this could be in a relationship that you're in where you're like, something's not right, but I don't want to be abandoned, so I'm going to stay, or a situation, a community, all of those things, you want to follow the heart piece, the intuition with that, whether it's speaking to someone like something doesn't feel right here. And in my work, how it's very heart-centered in that way, and how I start to unravel the parts of the heart center, that battle within, is really just showing the person that this is not their identity. It's who they became, but it's not their truth. It's who they became after all the programming. And sometimes we base our life on this a false premise, and we base our entire life. And then when someone comes in and challenges that, you may even get mad at them, like, no, I feel this. Like, I'm not lovable. No one can ever love me. Here's the evidence. Again, back to the evidence and proof. So not only did you learn to take the evidence and proof that you saw, you created evidence and proof built on a false premise. And so when someone comes in, even in your heart, in your body, it shocks the nervous system. Like, no, I've been living this way. Like, who am I if I actually am lovable? Did I just waste this many years of my life? No, you didn't waste the time of your life. You were learning. And you're allowed to learn. And now you're allowed to let go and move on to something new. It doesn't have to be regret and this big breakthrough. You can decide. So when we move into like the heart piece, we get into, I can give like a concrete example with a few of my clients now, is when I'll ask them a question and they move into the logic. Well, I don't want to do it because this, how do you feel? But then how do you feel? And I find it most with avoidant attachment. If you're listening to this and you're familiar with attachment styles. One is avoidant attachment style, where you're so disconnected from your emotions, you really feel that there's no emotions there. And so I find if I have clients who have more of the avoidant attachment style, then I would keep asking the question, well, how do you feel? And then, well, logically, I won't be able to do it. So it doesn't really matter how I feel. How do you feel? And then they will open up, their heart opens up, they'll break down or they'll release. And so that's one way that I start getting into the body center. And that helps me to see, okay, where are you feeling that release right now? Like, where are you feeling that in your body? Oh, I feel it in my stomach. What story's coming up? Oh, when I was 5 years old, I went to express my emotion and my dad told me that I wouldn't amount to anything. Oh, that's why when I go to connect now, I don't feel that I'm worthy of connecting. And then all the lights start going off. And it all starts from that battle within and start unraveling the pieces of the heart.
And I feel like, because I feel like the between the heart and the brain is it's holding the most responsibility.
Yes.
And when we talk to women and we talk about women, I feel like a lot of women, even when I talk to women and coach women, their heart is heavy on responsibilities, but they're also heavy on feeling like they're behind.
Mm.
Like you mentioned, not having enough time, like feeling like I wasted my time doing this. I wasted my time. I had to do this. I had to, gave up my career for a marriage. I gave up this. I gave up that. And they feel like they gave up so much of themselves that it's nothing left for them. And now they're this age or that age, and they're like, I have no more time. I have like I'm behind. I'm late. It's too far gone. Technology is too far gone. I'm not going to be able to, to have the career I want, to have the life I want, now, because I've gave everything away. And that speaks to people giving their power away. But when we talk about, and also giving your heart away, and not having boundaries around that. But when we talk about mastering your craft and mastering what you're doing, what is one tip that you can give to someone that's listening about what they can do to start to identify places in their body that may be trapped, maybe hurt, maybe pain, maybe fear, anxiety? What is one thing? Let's speak to anxiety, because I think anxiety is very rampant in the world, that you can give a piece of advice to right now.
I would say first making peace with where your body is now. So we'll go with the example of anxiety. So first, being okay with being anxious and just meeting it as an observer, not an absorber. You don't have to make it mean anything about you. So I'm feeling really anxious right now versus I'm feeling really anxious. I shouldn't be feeling anxious because I've done this before and I shouldn't be anxious anymore. I should know how to do this because then I got to do this. I got to get this done. I got to get versus I feel anxious right now. And when you feel that and you let yourself sit in that discomfort, whether it makes you feel like I'm inadequate, I'm not enough because I feel anxious, I didn't grow because I feel anxious, why am I countering the same fear over again? When you let yourself sit with that discomfort, things will come up versus projecting outward. Well, I feel anxious because my marriage is crap. I feel anxious because I can never get enough friends. I feel anxious because I can never get time for myself. These are projecting outward, and it may seem really, really like this is my reality. And then when you sit with the actual emotion of anxiety and you let yourself be okay with being anxious, knowing that it will pass when you let yourself sit with it. So, and what sitting with it looks like is literally sitting with it. So you set your alarm for say 5 minutes, say, I'm going to take 5 minutes to myself and really look at this anxiety without blame, without looking at a circumstance to say, this is why I'm anxious. And I'm just going to start to sit and look at that. Why do I feel anxious right now? And I want to go to the point with women, how we are taught to overgive ourselves and over deliver and just over. And then when we are in our leadership and our power, it's you're too bossy, you're too emotional, you're too this, you're too that. So it's a lot of on this side, it's too much of this, on that side. So let me just overgive. And then you get to that point where it's like a balloon that just pops. And that person who happens to be in your line of fire, they get the wrath. I'm not doing anything for anybody anymore. That's a signal.
Right.
That's a signal from your body that you've been giving more to others than yourself. You're human too. So you often hear, be kind, be this to people, be that. What are you giving to yourself? So when you feel that anxiety, are you giving yourself the space to feel that anxiety? Or, oh, I don't have time to feel this right now. I already wasted enough time with this. I already versus seeing that time as I was learning. And we forget about the learning curve. We're taught you go to college and then you should just know things. We learn all throughout life. We go through phases all throughout life. So that learning curve, oh, I was learning. Oh, this marriage took up this much of my time and I realized I put my career on my back burner. I was learning. Now I know better. What did I see modeled around us? Oh my God, my mother did that. Okay, I could continue doing it this way or I could go down a new path. And just letting it be a natural flow. And the first step with that is definitely just accepting that you feel anxious versus making yourself feel shameful and guilty that you feel anxious. Because when you start painting this whole story and unraveling all of these different parts over your feeling, that is self-abandonment in and of itself.
Listen, I'm like, I might need to get a session from you, because this is beautiful work that you're doing. And it's just
Thank you.
bringing so much up in me that it makes me feel like this is something that people need that they might not know they need, but it really is that thing that's just like, okay, we're all learning, we're all developing, we're all going through a season in our life. But what is it that's going to really not only change our minds, but change the way that our body reacts towards that? And I think that I'm in that space right now where I have a mental shift, but then sometimes my body locks up. Sometimes I'm like, wait a minute, it's getting close. Wait a minute, I didn't do this. Like, I've been on this schedule and it's like, okay, I missed a workout. I didn't do this. Oh my gosh, this is happening. And it's like, yeah, I'm letting myself down again. I'm not making good on my promises. I said I was going to do it. Why didn't I do it? My yes is my yes. My no is my no, but I'm bending. And I get into this place where it's like, I can feel my body. Like I was making a video and I was saying, when I sit at my desk, a lot of the time, my shoulders are like this. And I'm just like real tense. And I'm just like, okay, I'm doing stuff. And it's like, relax your shoulders, breathe. Everything is going to be okay. Because I gotta remind myself that a lot, like everything's going to be okay. You're safe. So I have to remind myself of that. But moreover, I have a personal question I want to ask. And during your experience, when you decided to leave the movement you were a part of and kind of just venture out on your own, did you decide that you were going to give up on God or walk away and that was not something you wanted to do anymore?
I never blamed God. I never thought it was a God thing. There was something in me that always knew this is a man thing. So I never walked away from God. I did become more spiritual. So I'm not more so like spiritual universe than into like religion. God has always been the central force of all of my creation. So
Okay.
I've always had the wisdom to see that this is not a God thing. It's a man thing. It's a control thing. Man, I just mean like it was a
Person. Yeah.
right. It's a person
A
thing.
human.
So
A human.
whether
Yeah.
it was a woman or man leading the
Yeah.
place, it's a person thing, not a God thing. God gives us that free will to move through life. And I wanted to respond to something you said with the anxiety. I had a client who actually, she had a lot of anxiety. And when she came in, again, she had all these different areas of life. She was doing so well. And she was telling me about like how she felt about being anxious because she had 3 children. She was married. And she's like, I feel like I can't get this done. And I asked her, I said, who told you that you weren't enough? And she sat there for probably a few minutes. And then she just started crying. And then I said, where are you feeling like this tightness? And we didn't even talk about the anxiety at that point. We talked about her. And that's often what we're lacking on the daily basis, especially as women, where we're taught to overgive, overshare, over. And then when we're doing very well and we miss that one check mark on our checklist, it's like, oh my God, like
Right.
I've tried doing this and I messed up this. It's like,
Yeah.
who told you that you were not enough, that what you were doing wasn't enough? And then the stories that erupted just from that. Well, when I was, when she was a certain age, every single time, no matter what she did, her father was always like, that's not right. You got to get this right. And so that goes back to the modeling and then just deciding I could continue this way or I could move on to a new thing. And that's where we move into the body first to move all that energy out. There's a lot of shaking that goes on in my sessions. There's a lot of shaking. So, because there's a lot of things stored, a lot of memories stored. And you just shake it and you just meet it, And a lot of times anxiety comes from resistance. You're resisting what is. Like, I don't want this to be messed up. I want this to be done. And you will even find your thoughts are moving quicker. And your heart is quickening, and it's also this fear of the unknown, like what's on the other side. What happens if I don't get this done? And it's bringing yourself back and just letting yourself feel, oh my gosh, I'm so scared right now. I feel so anxious right now. This is so uncomfortable. Okay, this is a phase. This isn't my life. This isn't my identity. And it's bringing yourself back to center, and that's my power piece in my work too.
Wow, this has truly been just a transformational conversation for me, because when we talked earlier, I was telling you, I'm like, usually I have a structure, I have a plan. Like if like on all of my videos, I usually have questions and I'm like, so what did, and I'm just like so structured and I'm just like, you know what, I'm gonna let God lead me through this conversation. And it was just so divine. And what the biggest piece and what I keep on hearing is it's time to win the war with yourself.
Yes.
And become who you are called to be. But you first must have to start with winning battles against that anxiety, the depression, the overcompensating.
Mhm.
And I believe that you can do it. I've done it. Miss Lisa has done it. And we are still going through different battles. But because we won the last one, we have more courage to do the next one and go through the next challenge. So thank you for taking the time to pour into me, to pouring into my audience, pouring into the people that watch this. A lot of women watch my videos, and a lot of women are dealing with imposter syndrome, self-doubt, and unworthiness. And I'm just grateful for you to pour into them and to let them know that the battle does not have to be alone, that they can do it with you. They can do it with coaches that have experience in different places, and that God has putting them through these challenges so that they can teach someone else and pay it forward as well.
Mhm.
So I'm very grateful to just speak with you today and for you to pour into this podcast. Really just touched my heart with a lot of things that you were saying, and I was just so excited. I'm like, we got to record this right now. I'm like, we got to get this on the record. This is so good. So I'm just so grateful. I want to thank everyone for watching this. And do you have any closing remarks? Where can people find you before we wrap it up today?
Yes, thank you for having me. And my closing remark will be one way to this battle within, that everyone has a battle that they're experiencing, some people multiple, and that's okay. And one way to soften the battle within is that you're allowed to feel. In a world where we're taught, especially as women at an early age, be quiet, sit down, you're too emotional to this, you're allowed to feel. And from that place of acceptance, that's where the heart opening, that battle within just softens. And you can meet that battle as your friend. We got this. We've been here before. We can do this again. I'll be okay. Just knowing you'll always be okay. And that all starts with you're allowed to feel.
Yes.
Where you can find me is Lisa_identity shift on Instagram. That is, so it's Lisa_identity shift. That is the place that you can find me the most.
Okay. And do you have a site where people can visit as well?
So I have that. And then I just recently am one of the pioneers for a podcast. It's called The Shift TV, SHIFT TV. And
Okay.
then I drop gems on there all the time, little short gems that you can listen to. As I know, a lot of your audience or you watching is a lot of women. And so I understand that you have a lot of different things that you're balancing, a lot of different hats that you're wearing. So I drop little trinkets throughout your day while you're washing the dishes or doing laundry, just to drop back into yourself. This doesn't have to be an overcasting of your entire life. You can start with these little micro steps, and that's what I offer on the podcast too, the Shift TV.
Well, the Shift TV, I'm going to definitely be checking it out. I definitely want to talk to you a little bit more. But I want to tell you, if you're watching, if no one's told you today, I love you. God loves you. Till next time, peace.